Arcturus of the constellation Boötes is the brightest star in the northern celestial hemisphere, with a visual magnitude of -0.05. It is the fourth brightest star in the night sky, after -1.46 magnitude Sirius, -0.86 magnitude Canopus, and -0.27 magnitude Alpha Centauri. It is a relatively close star at only 36.7 light-years from Earth, and, together with Vega and Sirius, one of the most luminous stars in the Sun's neighborhood. Arcturus is a Type K03 orange giant star, with an absolute magnitude of -0.30. It has likely exhausted its hydrogen from its core and is now in its active hydrogen shell burning phase. It will continue to expand before entering horizontal branch stage of its life cycle. Observational history. As one of the brightest stars in the sky, Arcturus has been significant to observers since antiquity. In ancient Mesopotamia, it was linked to the god Enlil, and also known as Shudden, Yoke, or Shupiye of unknown derivation in the three stars each Babylonian star catalogues and later Mul. Happened around 1100 BC. Ptolemy described Arcturus as subrufa. It has a BV color index of +1.23, roughly midway between Pollux and Aldebaran. Prehistoric Polynesian navigators knew Arcturus as Hokule, the star of joy. Arcturus is the zenith star of the Hawaiian Islands. Using Hokule and other stars, the Polynesians launched the double-hulled canoes from Tahiti and the Marquesas Islands. Traveling east and north, they eventually crossed the equator and reached the latitude at which Arcturus would appear directly overhead in the summer night sky. Knowing they had arrived at the exact latitude of the island chain, they sailed due west on the trade winds to landfall. If Hokula could be kept directly overhead, they landed on the southeastern shores of the big island of Hawaii. For a return trip to Tahiti, the navigators could use Sirius, the zenith star of that island. Since 1976, the Polynesian Voyaging Society's Hokula has crossed the Pacific Ocean many times under navigators who have incorporated this wayfinding technique in the non-instrument navigation. The French mathematician and astronomer Jean-Baptiste Morin observed Arcturus in the daytime with a telescope in 1635, and Arcturus has been seen at just before sunset with the naked eye. Based upon an annual parallax shift of 88.83 milliseconds as measured by the Hipparcos satellite, Arcturus is 36.7 light-years from Earth, relatively close in astronomical terms. The margin of error is 0.54 milliseconds, translating to a margin of error of ±2.3 light-years. Together with Spica and Denebola, Arcturus is part of the Spring Triangle asterism, and by extension, also of the Great Diamond after factoring in Caucaroly. Visibility. Arcturus has a visual magnitude of -0.05, making it the brightest star north of the celestial equator, and the fourth brightest star in the night sky. However, Alpha Centauri is a bright binary star, whose unresolved components to the naked eye are both fainter than Arcturus. This makes Arcturus the third brightest individual star, just ahead of Alpha Centauri.It, whose visual magnitude is -0.01. Arcturus is visible from both Earth's hemispheres as it is located 19 degrees north of the celestial equator. The star culminates at midnight on the 27th of April and at 9 p.m. on June 10, being visible during the late northern spring of the southern autumn. For the northern hemisphere, an easy way to find Arcturus is to follow the arc of the handle of the Big Dipper. By continuing in this path, one can find Spica arc to Arcturus, then Spike to Spica. Eta Boötes, or Mufrid, is only 3.3 light-years distant from Arcturus, and would have a visual magnitude -2.5. whereas an observer on the former system would find Arcturus as bright as Venus as seen from Earth. Properties. Arcturus is a type K03 red giant star. It is about 110 times brighter than the Sun in visible light wavelengths, but this underestimates its strength as much of the light it gives off is in the infrared. Total power output is about 180 times that of the Sun. The lower output in visible light is due to a lower efficacy as the star has a lower surface temperature than the Sun, with a near-infrared J-band magnitude of -2.2. Only Betelgeuse and Boötes are brighter. As the brightest K-type giant in the sky, it was the subject of an atlas of its visible spectrum, made from photographic spectra taken with the Cauday spectrograph of the Mount Wilson 2.5 meters telescope published in 1968, a key reference work for stellar spectroscopy. Subsequent spectral atlases with greater wavelength coverage and superior signal-to-noise ratio made with digital detectors have supplanted the older work, but the Arcturus spectrum remains an important standard for stellar spectroscopy. As a single star, the massive Arcturus cannot be measured directly, but models suggest it is slightly larger than that of the Sun. Evolutionary matching to the observed physical parameters gives a massive 1.08 plus or minus 0.06 m, while the oxygen isotope ratio for a first dredge-up star gives a massive 1.2 m. Arcturus has been estimated to be around 6 billion to 8.5 billion years old, and is ascending the red giant branch until it accumulates a large enough degenerate helium core to ignite the helium flash. Oscillations. As one of the brightest stars in the sky, Arcturus has been the subject of a number of studies in the emerging field of astroseismology. Belmont and colleagues carried out a radial velocity study of the star in April and May 1988, which showed variability with a frequency of the order of a few microhertz, the highest peak corresponding to 4.3 microhertz with an amplitude of 60 milliseconds -1, with a frequency separation of ~5 microhertz. They suggested that the most plausible explanation for the variability of Arcturus is stellar oscillations. Astroseismological measurements allow direct calculation of the mass and radius, giving values of 0.8 plus or minus 0.2 m and 27.9 plus or minus 3.4 r. This form of modeling is still relatively inaccurate, but a useful check on others' models. Element abundance. Astronomers term metals those elements with higher atomic numbers than helium. Arcturus has an enrichment of alpha elements relative to iron, but only about a third of solar metallicity. Arcturus is possibly a population 2 star. Kinematics. Arcturus has a high proper motion, 2 arcseconds a year, greater than any first magnitude star other than Alpha Centauri. It is moving rapidly relative to the solar system, and is now almost at its closest point to the Sun. Closest approach will happen in about 4,000 years, when the star will be a few hundredths of a light-year closer to Earth than it is today. Arcturus is thought to be an L-disk star, and appears to be moving with a group of 52 other such stars, known as the Arcturus stream. In antiquity, Arcturus was closer to the center of the constellation. Possible planetary system. Hippocrates also suggested that Arcturus is a binary star, with the companion about 20 times dimmer than the primary and orbiting close enough to be at the very limits of humans' current ability to make it out. Recent results remain inconclusive, but support the marginal Hippocrates detection of a binary companion. In 1993, radial velocity measurements of Aldebaran, Arcturus and Pollux showed that Arcturus exhibited a long-period radial velocity oscillation, which could be interpreted as a substellar companion. This substellar object would be nearly 12 times the mass of Jupiter and be located roughly at the same orbital distance from Arcturus as the Earth is from the Sun, at 1.1 astronomical units. However, all three stars surveyed showed similar oscillations yielding similar companion masses, and the authors concluded that the variation was likely to be intrinsic to the star rather than due to the gravitational effect of a companion. So far no substellar companion has been confirmed. Names and cultural significance. The name of the star derives from ancient Greek rho kappa tau omicron rho omicron sigma and means guardian of the bear, ultimately from rho kappa tau omicron sigma watcher, guardian, and omicron rho omicron sigma bear. It has been known by this name since at least the time of Hesiod. This is a reference to its being the brightest star in the constellation Boötes, which is next to the greater and lesser bears, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. In ancient Rome, the star's celestial activity was supposed to portend tempestuous weather, and a personification of the star acts as narrator of the prologue to Plautus's comedy Rudens. In the Middle Ages, Arcturus was considered a Bohemian fixed star and attributed to the stone jasper and the plantain herb. Cornelius Agrippa listed its Kabbalistic sign under the alternate name Al-Shameth. In Arabic, Arcturus is one of two stars called Al-Simak, the other is Spica. Arcturus is specified as a Simak Arami, the uplifted one of the Lancer. The term Al-Simak Al-Rami has appeared in Al-Aqsazi Al-Mu'akkad catalogue. This has been variously romanized in the past, leading to obsolete variants such as Aramek and as-Amech. For example, the name Al-Rami is used in Geoffrey Chaucer's treatise on the astrolabe. Another Arabic name is Haris el-Sema, from Haris al-Sama, the keeper of heaven, or Haris al-Shamal, the keeper of north. In the Hebrew scriptures, Arcturus is referred to in Job chapter 38 verse 32. Arcturus was once again called by its classical name from the Renaissance onwards. Aboriginal Australians. The Wotjobaluk people of southeastern Australia knew Arcturus as Marpian Kirk, mother of Jute and another star in Boötes, Wheat Kirk. Its appearance in the north signified the arrival of the larvae of the wood ant in spring. The beginning of summer was marked by the stars setting with the sun in the west and the disappearance of the larvae. The people of Milingimbi Island in Arnhem Land saw Arcturus and Mufreda's man and woman, and took the appearance of Arcturus at sunrise as a sign to go and harvest rakia as spycrush. The whalewoman of northern New South Wales knew Arcturus as Gambela red. China. In Chinese astronomy, Arcturus is called Da Jiao because it is the brightest star in the Chinese constellation called Jiao Xiu. Later it became a part of another constellation Kang Xiu. India. In Indian astrology, Vedic astrology, sidereal astrology, Arcturus is called Swati, which is a word meaning very beneficent, derived from the language Sanskrit. It is the eponymous star of one of the nakshatras of Hindu astrology. Inuit. In Inuit astronomy, Arcturus is called the Old Man and the First Ones. The Mikmaq of eastern Canada saw Arcturus as Kukuguas, the owl. Indonesia. In Indonesia, Arcturus is called Bintang Biduk. Polynesia. Arcturus had several names that described its significance to indigenous Polynesians. In the Society Islands, Arcturus, called Anatahu Atata Metwatatupumavi, was one of the 10 pillars of the sky, bright stars that represented the 10 heavens of the Tahitian afterlife. In Hawaii, the pattern of Boötes was called Hoko-Iwet, meaning stars of the frigate bird. This constellation marked the path for Hawaii on his return to Hawaii from the South Pacific Ocean. The Hawaiians called Arcturus Hokulare. It was equated to the Tuamotuan constellation Takiva, meaning frigate bird, which could either represent the figure of Boötes or just Arcturus. However, Arcturus may instead be the Tuamotuan star called Turu. The Hawaiian name for Arcturus as a single star was likely Hokulare, which means star of gladness, or clear star. In the Marquesas Islands, Arcturus was probably called Tautu and was the star that ruled the month approximating January. The Maori and Moriori called it Tortoru, a variant of the Marxan name and a name shared with Orion's belt. Japan. In Japan, Arcturus is called Mugi Boshi, meaning star of wheat. 1933 World's Fair. Arcturus achieved fame when its light was rumored to be the mechanism used to open the 1933 Chicago World's Fair. The star was chosen as it was thought that light from Arcturus had started its journey at about the time of the previous Chicago World's Fair in 1893. The star is 36.7 light-years from Earth, and the light started its journey in 1896. New Age religion. Arcturus is believed to be the gateway for the soul by believers in New Age religion.